Councillor in Tunbridge Wells Borough Council, and I'm Deputy Leader, but my portfolio covers culture, leisure and economic development, and I know many of you. So welcome to this Amelia Scott virtual stakeholder event. And the Amelia Scott is a key project in the Council's 5-year plan. Never has there been a more challenging but more important time to complete the project. It will be an important part of the town and borough's recovery, protecting the buildings and our heritage assets for future generations. Whilst the building work is the outward signs of the manifestation of the Amelia Scott, the Amelia Scott project itself is as much about bricks and mortar, but much, much more than that. And you're going to find out about that. We're going to have quite a few of these stakeholder events, and this is our first one. So you are all important and valued stakeholders, and today we'll try to share the process across many of the aspects of the Amelia Scott project. So now we will go over to Paul Taylor, our virtual compere. So thank you, Paul. Take it away.
Thank you, Councillor March, and as Councillor March has said, thank you all for joining, and thank you also to the presenters, some of whom are joining us from across the country on different technology platforms. So I very much hope that technology holds out tonight. We've got 63 slides that we need to cover in just about an hour, 1 video and 5 questions from a variety of presenters. So we're going to move on quite quickly, and I'm going to introduce the first 2 presenters. So the first 2 presenters are Cara and Anna. Now, Cara is a director at Metaphor. Metaphor are a national consultancy who work largely in the heritage and cultural sector. We've done a number of fairly significant projects, including the V&A and a number of museums and galleries across the country. And Anna, of course, is our collections manager at Tunbridge Wells. I'm going to stop at that point and hand over to Anna and to Cara. So thank you, Anna and Cara.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everyone. As Paul said, my name is Anna. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm the collections manager for the Amelia. I've been working closely with the team at Metaphor on the interpretation design element of the project. This evening, I'll be speaking to you about the displays and stories specifically in the Amelia, and Cara will be explaining more about the look and the feel of each of the spaces. The galleries in the Amelia will tell the story of the town of Tunbridge Wells and the rural areas of the borough, including the High Weald. The town has inspired artists, innovators, naturalists and political radicals for hundreds of years. There's a specific focus on the stories of the people of our borough, and we begin to explore some of our hidden histories. Through our work with Metaphor, we have sought to create a sense of fun, discovery and adventure. Metaphor have developed a distinct style and aesthetic for each room. No 2 rooms look the same, and each has its own unique visual identity. So Cara will be walking us through that shortly. Metaphor have responded to audience consultations by modernising and brightening the displays, decluttering and providing more focused interpretation and meaning, emphasising interactivity and creating open spaces for people to move around freely. I'll now hand over to Cara to introduce the scheme for the Welcome Hall.
Thanks, Anna. So yeah, the Welcome Hall lies at the heart of the Amelia. So no matter which service or activity visitors want to access, everyone must first arrive through the entrance. So given the variety of things on offer at the Amelia, it's imperative that this space provides an easy to understand and easily accessible introduction to the building. So key elements in this space include the most loved objects that are dispersed across the space, which Anna will explain a bit more about in a moment. There's library quick picks wrapped around the buggy park. There's a number of art school commissions. Again, Jeremy will go into more detail about that in a moment. There's a tourist information centre kiosk. There's a gateway self-service kiosk. There's a feature display, what we're calling We Are All Tunbridge Wells. And there's an area near the shop window for an event space for things like library baby bounce and rhyme time.
A display highlighting the life and work of Amelia Scott will be located in the foyer. There'll be key personal items on loan from the Women's Library at the London School of Economics on display here, and stories about Amelia's work with the workhouse at Pembury, support for Belgian refugees during the First World War, and her involvement in the women's suffrage movement will be explored. And a little bit further along in this space, some of our kind of iconic, most loved objects from the collection will be on display, and these include Minnie the Lulu Terrier, the rocking horse, and the Rig Doll's house.
So for the feature display, this will celebrate history and contemporary culture of Tunbridge Wells and showcase everything happening in the building. So it's constructed in the style of a cabinet of curiosities, filled with a cornucopia of objects, showcasing key museum collections, adult ed pieces, perhaps such as pottery or painting, and a library book of the month, tourist information postcards, and prominent figures from Tunbridge Wells, both past and present.
Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. This feature display, we see this being co-curated with the community and the different services within the building. And this would be an ever-changing, ever-evolving display, which will truly represent all that we are. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Oh, go on, sorry.
That's all right. Could we go on to the story of the Wells? Thanks, Cara.
No problem. So here we travel in both time and space. We move from the High Weald to the town centre, from the 17th century to the modern day. The model of the town is in the centre of the room, celebrating the famous pantiles, and is complemented by a high-level timeline, while touchscreens allow visitors to explore the region's geography and changing urban landscape. Around the edge of the room, there are magic lantern projections of the High Weald, evoking an appreciation for the local countryside. Showcases explore different aspects to Tunbridge Wells' history in greater depth.
Here we learn about the growth of tourism in the area. A narrative will deliver through the eyes of the early Georgian tourists and the Victorians who reinvented the town. We'll explore Tunbridge Wells' royal heritage, a shift to a more residential town, Decimus Burton's reimagining of the townscape, the history of the council, and the pioneers, innovators and activists who have made Tunbridge Wells their home. So we could go on to the next slide, please. So that's the floor plan. So Children's Library, I'll hand over to Cara.
So this room immerses children in the beautiful landscape around them, creating a sense of wonder and adventure, combining the educational and the magical. On one side of the room lies the town of Tunbridge Wells, on the other the rich green rolling countryside of the High Weald. In the corner, the Tree of Knowledge spreads out its branches with burrows and cubby holes positioned as if under tree roots for children to curl up in to read. In the centre of the room will be bookshelves which will curve around an image of the world printed on a rug, with moving images of the universe projected above. Children can sit and read or lie on their backs and gaze up at the stars. We'll also have a train from the collection which will be retrofitted with a moving mechanism to zip around on a railway track.
Displays around the edge of the room will include stories that are question-driven to develop critical thinking, to educate children of today on childhoods of the past, whilst also creating a sense of nostalgia for parents. Through our collections, we'll look at early years, learning and development, and explore the questions, what did we wear and what will I be? Next slide, please. Thanks, Cara. Look behind the scenes.
So this is a space where objects will be densely displayed with pared down interpretation and text, feeling more akin to a cabinet of curiosities. It will provide a window into the mysteries of a museum store. This space will explore collectors and collecting, drawing the curtain back on the people behind the museum's collections.
There'll be a mass display of the artefacts of the collectors of the past, from parts of curator Edith Bradley's costume collection to Frederick Green's Egyptology collection, and our array of scientific instruments. We'll be able to make our treasures more accessible and enable our audiences to be an integral part of what we do, whether that's conservation, interpretation, research or learning. Next slide, please.
So the atrium. This holds the bulk of the Amelia's library collections, holding works of both fiction and non-fiction. It will be a quiet, comfortable space with a variety of books to read, sofas to relax on, and objects from the collection to look at. There will also be a number of computer, laptop points, printers, and artist resource. At the end of the room is a full-height feature window, augmented with a grand piano, and reflected in a full-height mural or object display on the other side, making use of the vast sweeping space of the room. The mural object display will balance the space and create this harmony between library and museum collections. This display will add dynamism and impact to the room.
The local fruit and hop picking industries, which were a famous feature of the High Weald, offered an opportunity for families from London to have working holidays, and this forms the theme of our wall display. It will feature objects that played a part in that story whilst linking with the ground floor courtyard space, which you'll be able to see through the adjacent window, linking again the indoors to the outdoors. Next slide, please.
So the Camden Room. This is a celebration of Georgian and Regency splendour, showcased through portrait and dress. Showcases display examples of clothing worn by high society men and women, alongside complementary accessories. Showcases will be positioned in the centre of the room in order to allow for visitors to observe objects from various angles. Also, to enable increased interactivity and a more participatory, fun experience, we've integrated a number of interactives in the space. In particular, a portrait using VR technology allows visitors to dress up in Regency and Georgian costume digitally, encouraging a new level of understanding and participation. We also have a dressing table, which will let visitors dress up in replica costumes, and there'll be a tactile fabric book, letting visitors experience the different fabrics in a new way.
The space explores themes of family, the world of great estates and tourism, and the projection of public image, which will also include an exploration of class and gender. First, we meet generations of the Camden family through portraits positioned to echo relationships between the various sitters, whilst graphic panels explore their family history, involvement in politics, and dedication to fashions of the day. Whilst exploring the Camden family tree, we are taken on a journey through the different generations of famous 18th and early 19th century portrait artists. These include Reynolds, Gainsborough and Lawrence. And this will enable us to develop an understanding of the various brotherhoods and rivalries amongst the artists. To mirror the theme of generational changes in fashion and style, we see embodied in these artworks, the centre of the room will showcase a range of Georgian and Regency outfits. Next slide, please.
So the workroom. This space is a celebration of the talent, dexterity and skill of the artists and artisans who made Tunbridge Wells their home. Process is showcased as much as finished product. Artifacts are contrasted with the tools that crafted them. It's a fun, engaging and dynamic space that blends the historic collection with workspaces for visitors to create today.
5 main themes are explored in this space: photography, Tunbridge wear, folk art, ceramics and fashion. The use of bright colours and playful displays respond to the concerns in the audience consultation that the museum was too dark and dingy, cluttered and not participatory enough. The history of photography in Tunbridge Wells is told through the contrasting approaches of 3 main characters: Henry Peach Robinson, Thomas Sims and Ernest Ashton. Here, visitors will be able to interact with a model old-fashioned camera, peering through the viewfinder to see video clips of the photographic process in the late 19th century. The Tunbridge wear display contrasts our intricate and beautiful pieces with the sticks and patterns that were used to create them. In folk art, we encounter the rich history of folk art in Tunbridge Wells before meeting local tailor and famous collagist George Smart through his art and artefacts. An elaborate display of hats and gloves introduced us to the milliners and glovers of Tunbridge Wells. Objects are showcased as the products of the skill, talent and vision of their creators. Pottery, brickwork and a cobbler's studio are also incorporated into the displays, with additional flexibility and capacity in showcases to allow for future changes. Next slide.
So origins of collecting. This space provides an opportunity to explore local natural history, the high weald landscape and the archaeology of the area. By recalling the aesthetic of a Victorian conservatory, the visitor is transported into an outside world inside. Throughout, the design reflects the elements of discovery, fun and interactivity, and it allows visitors to examine objects more closely. The original Victorian wooden drawers have been repurposed, and visitors will be able to explore and uncover many different species of moths, birds' eggs, butterflies, and fossils on their own terms. The animals will be placed in a diorama, accessible from every angle at different levels, some at a children's eye level, some at an adult's eye level. This creates a sense of discovery and adventure, and children can see animals from their everyday lives from a new perspective and feel as if they are finding these animals for themselves rather than being shown them, promoting active engagement.
This room will include stories of Darwin and his local supporters, environmental sustainability, and the origins of our collection. We've taken the Victorian art of collecting and displayed the artefacts with a Gothic twist, as if the animals are escaping from their cages. Our taxidermy collection will primarily help to illustrate the environmental challenges we face today. Audience consultations revealed that members of the public were previously disappointed that the collections appeared to end with the Victorian era. Metaphors Design responds to this through an exploration of contemporary conservation and natural history practices, reminding visitors that these issues are far from antiquated. This is showcased through an interactive, incorporating information from the field notes of specialists and the knowledge of curators. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Paul.
So thank you very much both. That was a fascinating whistle-stop tour of all the different galleries and the fit out that's soon to come of the new Amelia Scott building. So thank you for that. Now we move on to the artists' commissions. Jeremy, our cultural manager, is going to take you through the 7 new artist installations. So Jeremy, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. So yes, as was mentioned, there are 7 Arts Council funded artist commissions going into the building. Some of them are going to become part of the fabric of the building. Some of them are simply housed within the building, but they are fully funded by the Arts Council as part of the money that they gave us originally. So I will very quickly take you through our thoughts on the 7. So the first being the visitor resource point, sort of replacing the kind of concept of a traditional front desk, if you like. This will be a place where people can come to get the information that they need. We thought, well, actually, let's reinvent this idea. Let's have a look at this. So we're going to go open call with this idea and see what comes back. Next slide, please. Then we have our largest commission, which is the entrance lighting. So this is an artist commission to produce lighting for the front of the building, but it's not exterior, it's interior. So there are lights that will light up the front of the building from the inside that are visible outside. And obviously that is our largest commission. Then we have the window seating commission. So this particular artist commission will live in on the ground floor in front of the big new window on the ground floor off Monson Road. And we thought, well, why just put seating in there? Let's actually do something interesting and fun and commission an artist to look at this and create something that is both a sculptural piece of art and something that's utilitarian that we can use and move out of the way if we need to as well. Next slide, please. So there will be a drinking fountain in the center of the courtyard. So the courtyard is the space at the back of the building. It will be open to the air. It's one of the other commissions I'll come on to in a moment, but the center of the courtyard is a drinking fountain. And once again, we thought, well, you know, why should we just do a regular drinking fountain? Let's actually have this designed. So we're going to be looking at this in the kind of concept of what's called a sabile, which is both a drinking fountain, but also a meeting place, a community meeting place. And because that's really what we want that courtyard space to be. Next slide, please. In paying homage to the brickworks of High Brooms. We're going to be creating a brick frieze that will be on the outside of the building, on the new part of the building facing into the courtyard. We haven't specifically determined what the frieze will be. We're going to leave the creative bit up to the artists. That's what they're brilliant at. But yes, there will be of a good size brick frieze honoring our heritage in the area. So obviously we're going to have a large open courtyard at the back, and we will want to secure the site. But once again, we've decided to make a bit of a scene of it. And we are going to have large decorative gates that will be functional security gates, but we're going to make them beautiful as well. We're focusing on specifically on iron gates and to bring the history of iron and iron working in the Weald into the site. So we're really looking forward to this one. And then, of course, what we're calling the curated courtyard, which is the entirety of the space, excuse me, out the back of the building. Now this space, we're calling this an artist commission, but we're looking at art as in garden design and use of the space. But we think there's a lot that this space can actually do. We want a space that's beautiful, but we also are kind of looking at it almost as a living gallery. It's a chance for us to tell the agricultural and horticultural stories of this area that we want to tell, because obviously Tunbridge Wells is a town, but it's surrounded by farmland, and it's a town that made itself based on the agriculture and the horticulture and the money that came from that. There's a lot of stories that we can tell in this space. So we're going to be quite mindful of the types of things that we grow, the visuals that we choose for this space, but this is very much about working with a community group, particularly well-being and mental health group, to help design it and work it and maintain it as a space. So it will be a beautiful space that tells the story of our heritage and is a useful resource for mental health and well-being. We're really looking forward to that space. It's going to be quite a good one. So that's sort of a very brisk tour of the 7 artist commissions that we have in mind. Most of this hasn't necessarily gone out to the public yet, but we will be releasing all 7 commissions at once, and we will be launching those to the public on the 4th of December. So from then, obviously, I talked briefly there about how we're going to be selecting our artists. So there'll be all open calls. Anyone can submit to bid for these specific works. We have a selection panel that will go through all the works. The panel itself is comprised of people relating to this project, local artists. We've got a couple of academics as well, and the panels will vary slightly based on the type of commission it is. So we'll have expert advice for each one, but we're going to be open and transparent about the entire thing. We invite anyone who's interested to apply, and as I say, full details will be released on the 4th of December. And I believe that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. I hope that people are as excited about those 7 installations as I am. I think they add something extra special to what is already a special project. So thank you for that, Jeremy. Moving on now, I'll hand you over to Anna. Anna is from Wilmot Dixon Interiors. She's head of social values at Wilmot Dixon Interiors. Wilmot Dixon Interiors are the contractors. They won the construction work following a full tender process, and I have to say, so far they've been absolutely incredible. I'll tell you a little bit about the construction later on, but Anna is going to concentrate on the social value project. So Anna, over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, and hello everyone, and absolutely delighted to be here today to share a bit more about not just the building, but what we are doing as part of this to support our local community during this project. So over the next few minutes, I just want to kind of give you a bit of an overview of why social value is so important to us in this project, how we're delivering social value, and what specific things we are doing. So just first and foremost, we're really excited to be working on this project, and as a business, we have a desire to give back more than just building the building, but actually we realise that we shape buildings that inhabit our communities at the end, and we've got an opportunity to really leave a legacy through the project. But also we recognise we have a responsibility to the Social Value Act, and demonstrating for every pound that we spend on this project, how that generates wider social and economic and environmental benefit. And most importantly, that we've already seen these fantastic slides of the visuals of what the project's going to look like, but this is a flagship project, and keeping our communities engaged in that project as we go along. So that's a little bit about our why. So in terms of how we do social value at Wilmot Dixon, we have just recently launched our new strategy for sustainable development, and one part of that is our Building Lives strategy. And so one of the ambitions that we have is to develop high impact social value plans on every project, where we really take the time to understand what our community needs, to listen to their wants, and to assess the impact. So at the very start of this project, a few months ago, we sat down with Jeremy and the team, and we actually asked ourselves, well, what is the legacy that we could leave behind during this project? And we developed a social value plan, which I'm going to go through with you in the next slide. So the Amelia Scott social value plan, we identified that there were 4 areas that we wanted to deliver impact, and we set ourselves a 5% added social value target. So that's based on the project value, and the 4 areas that we realised we can make the most impact was, the first and foremost, looking at how we as contractors can provide local skills and employment within the construction sector. So we're really proud that just recently we launched our first Building Lives Academy at the Future Stores, and that's going to be providing level 1 employability and CSCS cards and a level 1 health and safety to people in the local area who are long-term unemployed, or young people who are not in education or employment, and that's just recently kicked off. So we're really excited to be able to offer that, to give people the chance to develop construction skills during this project. The second area of our social value plan during this project is to provide quality education support and to engage local young people into the project. So one of the things that we're offering at the moment is virtual work experience and opportunities to get live insights into the project, so that our young people can understand and be part of this historic moment of the building of this project. And also we're looking at a project around teaching our children about democracy and how buildings are built. So that will be coming in the new year. And then our third area that we recognised was actually, in terms of adding value, how could we help to tackle homelessness and support refugee crisis? So at the moment, we're looking at engaging a teacher to support a local refugee project to support with access to an ESOL tutor. And at the moment, we're also collecting coats for a homelessness charity drive as well. And also as part of the project, we have our local spend and labour. So in terms of what we've achieved so far, we've already delivered 59.2% of the project value back into the local economy through local spend and local labour, and we've delivered 1% added social value through some of the wider activities that we are doing. So just to kind of share some pictures with you and also some other stories. So some of the team have been going out. You can see here one of our teammates in the bottom left-hand corner who's doing a virtual career activity, because obviously during COVID it's been a bit of a challenging time, so we've had to switch our delivery to online. And before that, some of our team in the right-hand side you can see they were delivering activities with the local economic development team. We also, just around sustainability, 15,000 bricks were reused as part of the project, and furniture was also donated to a charity called Men in Sheds. So that's just a bit of an insight into some of the things that we're doing, and we're really proud and excited to be working with Tunbridge Wells. And if anyone has any questions or wants to learn more about the activities that we're doing, I would welcome you to reach out. So thanks so much, Paul. I'll pass back to you, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share this.
Thank you very much, Anna, and can I thank you particularly, and Wilmot Dixon, because it's, as Councillor March said at the beginning, this project is much more than a construction project, and I think for all of us involved in the project, that social value and what the Amelia can give back to the community is so important to us. So thank you very much. And this is a particularly strange part now actually of the presentation, as I'm handing over to myself. And I'm pleased to say at this stage we are on track to finish on time. So my presentation will tell you about construction, and I'd like to start really by just outlining the construction challenges. Clearly it's a huge project, challenging because really of the age of the listed buildings. Many of those buildings present very unique challenges. Right at the very start of the project, there was a significant discovery of asbestos, which had to be removed by specialists. We have discovered that actually the buildings have been extended at different times with different materials and different construction methods. And as the buildings have been pulled apart or deconstructed to be reconstructed, we've discovered that a significant amount of propping was required to simply stop the structure falling apart altogether. We knew at the very beginning that actually across the buildings there were 7 different levels within the different buildings, and that presented a challenge to visitors. So one of the key aspirations of the project was to try and make those buildings more accessible and more navigable. It's a very constrained site, as those of you who know the site in the centre of the town will understand. One of the challenges for Wilmot Dixon has really been around storing the materials on site whilst working safely, and I would say working safely in a COVID secure environment as well. And as you'll see later on, when technology willing, I'll show you a quick video, you really get a sense of how difficult that site is when you see how the team have been working. As I've already said, a significant amount of temporary propping, much more than we originally anticipated. I think when Wilmot Dixon came on site, they had to have 3 different specialist structural engineers to design a scheme that would keep the structure of the buildings intact whilst they were dismantling some of the older structures to put some of the new infill in. And of course, as Councillor March said, there is no more challenging time to do such a worthwhile project. And of course, we faced financial pressures in part through Brexit, in part through COVID-19, but also if you think back to the history of the project, we've been working on this for approaching 10 years, and I think the initial Heritage Lottery Fund bid was put in 2016. Now an awful lot has changed since then, not least of all construction related prices. So it's been a huge challenge to get as far as we have within the financial envelope. But I'm pleased to say that we have managed, and Wilmot Dixon have managed to come through those challenges. So next slide, please. So I just thought I'd just give you a flavour of the challenge in numbers, if you like. So the cost just of the construction element alone is £12.5 million, so not an insignificant figure. The programme for construction is 74 weeks, and at this stage Wilmot Dixon are bang on track. They're just over halfway through. An interesting set of figures, they've removed over 3,000 tonnes of material. They've had to strip out 3,000 tonnes of material, and I put in brackets there, including a significant amount of guano. I think there were several families of pigeons living in the lofts of the adult education buildings, and the construction manager has been at pains to stress that he can't quite understand how the ceilings hadn't previously collapsed with the weight of guano. So lots of material extracted. What goes out must come back in at least some shape or form. So there's been over 500 tons of new materials coming onto the site, including new brickwork, new glulam beams for the extension, significant amount of concrete pouring, and the propping materials, as I've already mentioned. That's required, or will require when complete, somewhere in the region of 400 lorry journeys. And Wilmot Dixon have attempted to get the materials out and in with a minimum amount of disruption for businesses and for visitors to the town alike. At the peak of the construction, there will be over 12 trades on site working in, as I've already said, a COVID secure way. And again, at the peak of construction, there'll be somewhere in the region of 100 workmen on site, all applying their different trades. So next slide, please. So the 3 stages of the process, and I apologize, this is a slightly wordy slide, but just to summarize, the first stage was effectively relocating all the services, so finding temporary homes and decanting into those temporary homes. And that work was a set of projects really in its own right and was completed in 2019 before the site was vacated and handed over to Wilmot Dixon. So construction works started, I think, on the 13th of January 2020. And the first part of those construction works was the demolition and restoration of the existing buildings to create the Amelia Scott. And as I've said, work is on programme to be completed, construction element, in May 2021, before the building is then handed over in that 3rd phase to the specialist fit out team, who will fit out the art gallery, the museum, and they will install all the artwork, the interactive displays, the cases, the furniture, the IT installation, and as it says on that slide, to produce a fully state-of-the-art building ready, fingers crossed, for the official launch, which is planned for April 2022, to coincide as well with the adult education term times. So that's the plan. So far, so good. A lot of work still to do on the project, a significant amount of work already gone in. So next slide, please. So I thought picture paints 1,000 words. So I thought it would be useful just to show you some before and during images. Now you've seen what the buildings will look like when they're fully fitted out. Anna and Carla have taken you through that. So just a few images really. So you can see there, obviously the exterior on the top photo of the library and the museum building. And underneath you've got the adult education building as was, slightly tired, slightly unloved and quite dirty. And then of course, significant amount of scaffolding appeared, the hoardings went up and the building was clad and ready for deconstruction. So next set of photographs, please. Just a little look at some of the internals. So the first picture there is the children's library as was. And the blue wall in the second picture on the right is an indication that you are in the children's library as is at the minute. And actually some of these pictures are now slightly out of date. So what I'm showing you is not real time, but it does indicate perhaps some of the progress that's happened on site. So next slide, please. I'm sure everybody remembers what I call the back of the buildings with the old Nissan huts, which were obviously demolished and stripped out to make way for the courtyard that Jeremy has described as the living gallery. So a series of pictures there that show you the removal of the huts where the kilns used to be and how the site kind of looks now. It doesn't actually, because it's moved on again. So I think on the next slide we'll show you how that's changed a little bit as well. So thank you, Rebecca. So a different view showing you some of the changes to the back of the site, the huts being removed, the new space being prepared, and the walls, the curved walls starting to go up on the new galleried space and the new temporary exhibition space. So next slide, please. Now, this is actually one of my favourite set of photos. So this is showing progress of the installation of the steel vaulted beams and the slab for the new infill of the barrel vaulted area, the atrium area. And I think as we move on to the next set of slides, please. I was wrong, it's on the next one. So this is just showing you some of the brickwork. There's been a significant amount of infill of the new brickwork, and actually one of the challenges we had was that during COVID, the brickyard that was producing the bricks closed, and we had to source the bricks from elsewhere. I'm pleased to say that those bricks are now on site, as are the glulam beams which come from Germany and the lift, avoiding any of the challenges of Brexit. And so that's just a slide that shows you some of the brickwork that's started and is ongoing. So this is my favourite slide. So this is the glulam beams being installed. I think on Monday this week there were 3 glulam beams up. My slides only actually show you the first beam going up, which I think actually when it's set against the blue sky is rather iconic, and I think shows you how exciting that space is likely to be. So next slide, please. So this is where things get rather dangerous. Now, this is the first time we've hosted such an event, and we're now going to try and show you a very quick walkthrough video. I appreciate everybody will have had their tea. Now, this is a rather, perhaps it's a little bit of a disconcerting and slightly disjointed video, but I wanted to try and give you an insight as to what the building actually looks like now through video. So Wilmot Dixon have prepared this video. I'm going to do a little bit of narration. There will be times when I don't speak, and I'll try and orientate you in the building and give you a little bit of an insight as to what has been going on. So roll VT, please, Rebecca, and fingers crossed again. Excellent. That's a very good sign. So as we come into the building, this takes us up the adult education stairs. The narrative there is making the point that Wilmot Dixon have managed to overcome all of the challenges. It's the only one of the HLF projects that actually haven't experienced any COVID delay at all. So this is the part where we fast forward and we take you into some of the adult education spaces. Now, the main thing to point out here is that during the works, a significant amount of plaster had to be stripped out. A lot of the plaster actually was damp, and in some cases there was mold. So there's a significant amount more plaster had to be stripped out, and all has to be done using traditional lime and horsehair. Now, that's significantly more costly, but it's a requirement of the conservation of the building, and it actually takes a long time for it to cure rather than dry. So it's been a major part of the renovation of these particular spaces back to their former glory, to strip out that old plaster. You can see there the high ceilings with the steel frames, just to return it to its former glory, which I have to say probably had been neglected. There's not a great deal more to show you in these spaces, so a lot of this is probably for the connoisseurs of internal plasterworks, but it does, I think, show you just the extent of the work that's had to go on there. Another little burst of speed while we take you through to another part of the building. One of the important things to stress is that a big part of this work has been about installing new plant, and there's a new plant room actually on the ceiling. Significant amount of work has gone into installing the new equipment. Now, this takes you out into one of the infill spaces. So this is the new space, the barrel vaulted roof for the atrium, as you've seen by Cara and Anna. And then it turns you around full circle and it shows you a view of the courtyard. You can see 3 funnels of a tank that looked a little bit like Thomas the Tank Engine, which is the rainwater grey water harvesting tank. It harvests all the water and saves runoff also down into the town. So it now takes you through into what will be some of the new gallery spaces. So the Camden collection and the workroom. And you can see there the new roof lights, which are being redesigned and replaced. We're trying to also keep the metal support structures, which only became apparent when the old the old ceiling was stripped out. Excuse me. This is one of the important things that actually we came across in the project. This is all the propping that you can see, the extensive steels that have been required to keep the building secure and intact. And actually, if you walk around the site, it's actually quite a job to navigate your way through the amount of steels. And actually what we're seeing here is many of those steels have now actually been stripped out. So this moves you through into the new reading room, the reference library, and you can see across into the old town hall. Quick glimpse of the plant room where the solar panels will be installed on the roof. So this takes us into the new archive space. And again, a view of the courtyard with Thomas the Tank Engine buried. Down the stairs and into the very glamorous bin storage area and the loading bay where the new installations will come in and the collections will come in. And into the new temporary exhibition room with the curved wall at the end. They do like their temporary propping in Wilmot Dixon. I think as you're spun around, you can see the amount of materials on site and obviously the significant amount of propping that's throughout the building. I do apologise, this is so quick to move you through. And again, some of the new steels that have had to be installed as part of the construction. Windows are being refurbished, as it says. Down into the basement, for those of you who knew the building as was, one of the challenges was keeping the basement dry. 60,000 objects stored in the basement in storage really that wasn't fit for purpose. More archive storage areas, not glamorous but very important, and more temporary propping and construction work. And this takes us back, I think, into the children's library. As we spin around, we'll see the signature blue wall. And across into the welcome area, which takes you through into the courtyard, which will be a fantastic space once fitted out. And into the cafe which actually spills out into the courtyard. Not a particularly good view of the cafe. It's quite a difficult space to film in, I think, with all the works that were going on in there as well. So the cafe is starting to take shape. And back to where it all started. Wonderful. Thank you. So I do apologise if that's made you feel slightly motion sick. The original video was somewhere in the region of 20 minutes long, and we wanted to show it to you, so we wanted to try and crop it down, and apologies, we've had to speed up certain parts. So if we could go back to the slide presentation, Rebecca, please. So before we move into questions, I just wanted to perhaps leave you with one point, and I think it's a point that Councillor March started with and something that I've stressed throughout. To us, it's not enough to preserve the building. It's very important that what we do in the building, the outcomes of the building, really bring it to life. And we do firmly believe in the vision of enriching lives and inspiring learning. So hopefully when construction is finished and when fit out is finished and when the building is operating, we'll be able to bring that very important vision to life. So just then, with the last 5 minutes that we've got left, thank you to those people who've put forward questions. So perhaps if we move into the questions, and I'll endeavour to answer the questions. So the first question was a question about the challenges really of COVID. And the question is asking, have we been able to make any minor modifications to make it a more COVID secure environment? So I think it's a very good question, something that we're mindful of, and it is incredibly challenging. COVID has meant it's been very difficult to deliver our activity plan and for our services such as the adult education and the library. Now, we've discussed the impact of COVID with the HLF, our funders and ACE, and with our fit out and construction team. It is too late to make significant changes without incurring significant cost. And as hopefully you'll have seen, it's very difficult to make major structural interventions to the building, such as the size of corridors. However, that said, we're making sure everything is designed in a way which means it's quick and easy to clean, or as quick and easy to clean as possible. We've made sure, in as much as we can, that there's sufficient circulation space within the galleries, and the galleries are designed as far as they possibly can be to be flexible, to allow changes depending upon how things develop, because I don't think any of us know how the pandemic is likely to, or when it's likely to really be over. We will, of course, adhere to any guidelines that are in place at the time to implement a COVID secure set of actions that will no doubt include additional cleaning on things like the exhibition cases and the interactive displays. But it is a challenge, a very good question, and thank you for that question, and a significant challenge. So perhaps we could go on to the second question. So the second question then is, I have taken part in consultations about the project in the pre-funding stage, and thank you for that. I was wondering how much community involvement will there be during fit out? Will there be a chance for local groups to assist with the interpretation? So another good question, and thank you very much for the question. And thank you for being involved in the initial consultation, which I think goes back to somewhere around 2016, 2017. And as I think Anna and Carla alluded to, much of the fit out and the design and interpretation scheme has been around embracing that consultation and the suggestions during that consultation. And although it seems a long time ago, we're now at the process whereby we're just about to go out to tender for those works. So unfortunately, there isn't an opportunity to be involved in the fit out and interpretation. And actually, it's something for the specialist team, for Cara and her team at Metaphor, and for Anna and her team. There will be, as Jeremy says, an opportunity to be potentially involved in the curation of the living gallery in the courtyard, and of course there will be volunteering opportunities, but we're now, as I said, almost at the stage where we're going out to tender at what's called REBA stage 4. So perhaps we could have the next question. So the next question is about the planned drinking water fountains and the bottle filling stations. So as Jeremy has already said in his presentation, there will be a drinking fountain and a meeting point, a CBIL, in the courtyard, and that will be the main bottle filling station. However, there will be water points throughout the building in the bookstore, in the museum, in the learning space, in the adult education centre, in the cafe, in the offices, in the Tunbridge Wells call centre, because of course the gateway will be there, and there will be a staff facility as well. So if we could move on to the next question, please. Oh, so are there any plans, yes, to have a water feature now or one day? Yes, absolutely. Jeremy has covered that. It'll be an artist's commission, and we're really looking forward to how that will look and fit into the courtyard. So next question, please. Will there be a place found for Chris Burke's originals of the station murals? They need a good home where they will be seen not just by those who use the railway station. And another good question, and yes, they do need a good home. However, unfortunately, it's not going to be in the Amelia. There simply isn't the amount of space. I believe they are quite big. There's already 60,000 objects that we need to curate, store, display in the open storage that we've already mentioned previously. And unfortunately, at this minute in time, we don't believe there's going to be space to display those murals. So apologies for that. Rebecca, I think that might be our last question. It is. Quite miraculously, we're only 1 minute over time, and that's nothing at all to do with my virtual hosting. It's all to do with the presenters that I'd like to thank again. I'm hoping that Councillor March is still on the call, and if she is, I'm just going to ask if she would like to say any just quick words to finish. But if not, I'd like to thank you all for joining, and I'd like to thank all the presenters. So Councillor March, are you still there? Councillor March is not still there. So in that case, I am just going to bring the event to a close. And just to repeat what Councillor March said at the beginning, we're hoping that this is a regular occurrence, and we will probably focus on different themes of the Amelia as the fit out and the artist commissions progress. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you to all the presenters. Have a good rest of the evening. Thank you.